Hi, so here we are, 5 scales to rule them all. Basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to take 5 scales that evolve, all starting, let's see, let's choose red. They're all starting on the initial building blocks of Aeolian, which is otherwise known as the natural minor scale. I'm going to do an example in C. So this is E, A, D, G, and this is your 4-string bass, so we've got string 1, string 2, string 3, string 4. And the initial starting scale of C major, I'll tell you what, because of how I've drawn the boxes, we're going to do them in B. So starting with B, Aeolian, so we've got here, 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 and here. So we've got root plus second plus flat third plus 4 plus 5 plus flat 6 plus flat 7. And as you can see, it creates a nice little pattern. So it would be 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, 4, 5. Is that right? Aeolian, there we go. In B. So I'm not going to go into the music theory, but because that's a lot of sharps and flats on the stave. But what I'm going to show you next is how these scales evolve. So we actually end up with, down here, the major scale, which is a mode of Aeolian. Aeolian is a mode of the major scale, known as Ionian. But it kind of evolves from here. So let's say if we take B and we take the 6th here and we put that up a step, we get Dorian next. So the only note that's changed is here, and that leads us to Dorian, which is the second of our 5 scales. The next step from there is to 1, 2, flat third, 4th, 5th, to take our, let's say our 7th, so we put a major 7 there, and then we drop the 6 back down, we've got harmonic minor. So I jumped ahead a little bit, but the final stage of the pattern is we've got melodic minor, which is everything adapted up bar the 3rd, so the 3rd is different, and then that leads us to Ionian. So we've got melodic minor, jazz melodic minor. The best way I can describe it is if you just look at these as finger patterns. So we've got root, second, flat third. So this is how I think about it on the fretboard. Is alright. So you've got 1, say 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, 4, 2, 4. So we made a mistake earlier. When you generate, let me show you this briefly. To generate every single one of these scales, right, granted these are written in notation, but they're all interdependent on these initial scales, which are threefold, which is the Aeolian, harmonic minor, and the melodic minor, which are, let's see, where can you see? So we've got root, 2, 4, root, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7th, octave. Then you've got root, major 7 octave, and then you've got root to flat third, 4, 5, major 6th, major 7th octave. So that's Aeolian or minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. The basic premise of what I'm arguing is that all other scales are built of this. So let's say, for example, you might know your pentatonics fairly well. So let's say minor pentatonic. And that is built off 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is built off the notes of Aeolian. Play note, missing note, play note, missing note, play note, missing note. So you get minor pentatonic. To make that into a blues, you add in the blue note here. And then all 3 scales have modes as pictured here. So you actually start with the major modes in the top left. Oh, sorry, hitting the mic. You start with the major modes, and there's 7 modes. Every scale, so as you can see across the top there, you've got major, melodic minor, harmonic minor. But the thing is, if you start from the 6th and think about it in terms of Aeolian and its modes, you've got 3 core minor scales, which is harmonic minor, melodic minor, and Aeolian, that build out 3 times 7, so 21 scales. Then you can, you can make variables across each scale, but for example, the pentatonic is a 5-note subdivision. Penta as in 5, you get hexatonic, which is 8. And if you learn these 5 scales, so obviously you're going to know your major anyway, so that's Ionian, because that's how everything is built based on the piano. But if you start that from Aeolian, you end up with these 3 key scales that inform all the rest of music theory, basically. So I'm just going to pause for thought and then be back. So from here we've got our basic scales that we've written out. So let's just get rid of them quick and start to make a bit more sense of it. So we know that our fundamental building blocks now are melodic minor, harmonic minor, and natural minor. So let's just present them as Aeolian, root, 2nd, minor 3rd, 4th, 5th, minor 6th, minor 7th octave. So we've got root, 2nd, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 6th, flat 7th octave. I'm basically trying to argue that everything starts with Aeolian, basically. So what I'm driving at is you can build out any scale from those initial 3 building blocks. So let's go back to black pen for a second. So, like, if you were to take, right, let's just do the modes, for example. So let's start minor / Aeolian modes. For all of you that know your music theory, of some degree, you're going to know the modes. They're the most fundamental building blocks. So for my grade 8, for example, I had to know all 7 modes of major in all 12 keys, plus on top of those 7 scales you needed to know your pentatonics, so there's 5 of them, plus two completely linear scales known as the diminished and the whole tone. Now, interestingly, before we move on, the diminished and the whole tone scales are basically infinite patterns, and there's only 2 of each. So let's take, for example, the pattern. So let's go on a 4-string bass then. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 frets. So if you start on, let's say, F here, so F is your first note, and we're going to start with the half whole diminished. This will make sense as to why I'm half whole, and there's 2 of them basically. So you start root, flat second, minor third, major third, sharp 4, 5, major 6, and dominant 7. But as you can see, we've got this pattern. Look, so we've got 1, 2, so whole, half, whole, half, and that goes on infinitely. Across the fretboard. So like, for example, if we were doing 1, 2, 3, 4, so you get your diminished outlined in a diagonal, and then again here 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, given the number of notes that covers, if you were to, the only other variation of the whole tone scale say 11 frets, is to either start whole half, which is basically exactly the same pattern, but this goes into Barry Harris's theory a little bit, but if you shift from F, because every note in a diminished chord can be a name of the note, so you've got root, if you take a classic diminished arpeggio, so that is, if you play them linearly, that's an arpeggio. If you play them, say, all 4 across, and you put that there, you've got a diminished chord, or a diminished arpeggio. Now, the only frets not used by that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and there should be a 12th there, 12. There's basically there's two diminished scales in existence, and you can start them either half whole or whole half. So you can go whole tone to half, and it still works out as the same pattern. It's just a point of reference. So you've got like this pattern: whole, half, whole, half. That's one of the infinite patterns in the note. So outside of that, everything else is based on those original fundamental 3 scales. So we've covered diminished, so let's cross that out. Whole tone is interesting as well, because it's another infinite pattern, but like the name infers, it's in whole tones. So let's say we start on F, where we started before with diminished. We've got whole, whole, whole. And then you can shift that across in the exact same way you do with diminished. You got whole, 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 whole. So add an extra fret there to make it complete. Whole. And again, it's a diagonal pattern across the fretboard, but moving in whole tones as opposed to whole and half tones. And again, there is only two of them. So if you start on F, you get the pattern we just laid out. But if you start on F sharp or G flat, let's say, so there's your F sharp there, F sharp / G flat. You then mapped out the entirety of the neck in whole tones again. And so, they're the only two variables. Now, there are also, let's have a look, symmetrical scales, so diminished and the octatonic, which we kind of covered. We've got the whole tone scale, we've got bebop scales. So like, if you want to cover a bebop scale, all you need to do for the variables is you take, let's say, C major. I'm sorry, I'm just info dumping. I hope this is interesting. Please like and subscribe, share the video if you find it interesting. So let's choose C. So we've got C, C major. So that is, excluding the octave, 7 notes, which is called a diatonic scale. Now, the bebop scale, you can either add, if memory serves, you can add, let me just double check I've got this right. So there's bebop major, bebop dominant, bebop Dorian, bebop minor, bebop Locrian. So I'm going to cover, just for an example, the major and the dominant, because they're the ones I've got most committed to memory. So you go root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, flat seventh, sixth, flat seventh, seventh octave. That's your major bebop. And you might play that. That sounds like do 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 do. And then you've got the Dorian one, which is the dominant one, which is basically the same scale, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But instead of adding the minor 7, we add the flat 6. And that goes da 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 da. I could give an audio example of that, but I'm not going to because we'll do that later. And that becomes a hexatonic. Hex as in 8. And becomes a hexatonic scale. Because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the octave. So that, I hope I'm starting to get my theory across. And then, so from the initial, let's say minor is 1. Minor, harmonic minor is the second motion. So minor, we got, slow down David. Minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. We've got, from here, 7 scales. 7 scales. 7 scales. So that's 21 scales. Now if you learn them in all keys, that's 21 by 33 technically, if you follow the Victor Wooten theory of it. So actually we're doing all minor, so we've got just going to learn them in 12. So 12 by 21. Let me just get a calculator. 21 times 12. We need this calculator. So by learning all of them, so that's 252 variables, just by learning 1, 2, 3 scales across the entire neck. So you might do, for example, so like classically, like you might learn the minor scale, so it would be Aeolian, Locrian, then Ionian, Dorian, I think, is it Lydian next? Lydian next, yeah, because it's a sharp 4. Mixo, Lydian, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What am I missing? Aeolian, Phrygian in there. There we go. So third mode is Phrygian. These can all be learned as one scale across the whole neck. So let's just do something a bit neater when I'm making this point. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we want a 13, 14, 15. 13, 14, 15. So let's say you're doing, let's start with F sharp again. So that, got F sharp. So 1, 2. Actually, no, we're in minor, so we can start right down on the F. So if you take all your modes and you learn them from Aeolian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's Aeolian. Then Locrian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we've got our Ionian, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So on with, now Dorian, we move to the next note, so Dorian, 1, 2, is that right? Dorian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that builds up all the way up, and so to do that, I just fill in all the missing gaps. So Dorian, then we've got Phrygian. These have extended ranges that can go all across this high G string, but we'll ignore that for now, for the sake of argument. Then we've got Lydian, Mixolydian, is it? Where did we get to? Aeolian, Locrian, Aeolian, Locrian, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, which we did, Lydian here, so that's, Phrygian should have a sharp 5, natural 5, sorry, and then Mixolydian next, sorry, there we go, Mixolydian, and Lydian. You get the idea. So Lydian has a sharp 4. What I'm trying to present to you is that if you learn the minor scale in all possible variables, so you take the minor scale, you start on the root of the lowest point and you play it all the way to the highest point, inherently by learning that entire single scale across the whole neck, you've learned 7 scales, because all you're doing is erasing all the notes that aren't in that scale from the entire chromatic scale. You do the same with harmonic minor. You start on F or even E and play a harmonic minor all the way up the neck. That's another 7 scales. Melodic minor. So by learning that, you've got 21 scales, which you can then shift the pattern up and down the neck linearly, almost like roller it, and you end up with 252 scales committed to memory. Now, where it gets interesting is that, like with the pentatonics of the minor scale, so by removing one note, play a note, miss a note, play a note, miss a note, play a note. That's the wrong scale formula. But yeah, root, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat 7, octave. That becomes a 5-note variable. Then you've got the hexatonics like the bebop scale, which are 8-note variables, and basically those 252 scales you've learned by learning 3 scales across the whole neck and then sliding them up and down become, we do the math on this again, let's have a look, what would it be? Hold on, let me pause and do the math. The argument I'm making is that natural minor, root, second, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat sixth, flat seventh, octave, is varied by one note to make Dorian. Then it's varied by another note to make melodic minor, and then it's varied by another note to make harmonic minor. These 4 scales there, plus then once you get to melodic minor, all you need to do is swap the third and you've reached major territory. So those 5 scales, if you learn all the modes, Aeolian and major are the same range of modes, so you've already covered 2 bases. And then if you learn the melodic minor modes and the harmonic minor modes, you've got 252 scales, plus then you need to learn an additional 2 plus times 2 diminish and plus times 2 whole tones. So to get to grade 8 standard of theory, technically speaking, you're learning 258 scales, and you know what, you didn't even need the melodic minor or the harmonic minor, you just needed to know the 2 root shapes for grade 8. So what am I trying to say? This is my argument, that they're the 5 core scales of music, because let's take another example just to anchor this point home. You've got Hungarian minor, which is used in a lot of Baltic music, and is a 6 scale, and it's root second, flat third, sharp 4, 5, flat 6, major 7th, octave. So you've got a little, let me draw that a bit more logically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, 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 bang. So what you're doing is you're taking the second scale of our suggested lead points into scales. So root, second, third. Harmonic minor would then have a major 4th, perfect 4th, but in fact it has a sharp 4, a 5th, a flat 6, a 7th, and an octave, and that becomes your Hungarian minor, which is a variable or a variant. And I believe, let me just double check, Neapolitan evolves from root, flat second, flat third, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, octave. So Neapolitan, again, great scale, a variant of other scales. So root, what did I say? Root, flat second, flat third, and then everything else is major. That's a variant of melodic minor, by virtue of the fact that the only difference between this scale and melodic minor is the flat second. So on this scale board we've got presented, let's say 7, 14, 21 times 2, 45, no, 42, and then the remaining 2 scales here. These are basically, this is a board of every scale I could find. So we've got 42 plus 7, so 49 plus 56, is that right? 56 plus the pentatonics, enigmatic scale, blues scale, which is variable. The enigmatic scale I don't have committed to memory, but is an interesting one. Augmented scale is outside of the scope. They're the only 2 that I haven't covered in this whole thing, other than bebop minor, which is root second, flat third, 4th, 5th, flat sharp 6, flat 7th octave. And if you lock in that many scales, we've got an additional of our 2, 5, 8. We've got plus 7 Neapolitan, 7. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can extrapolate all of the scales basically from that. The only thing we have missed from it is Japanese tetrachords, which I'm not entirely fluent in, but my favourite one is 1, 2, 3, 4. Favourite one is Hirajoshi, which is root, which is root, flat 2, fourth, fifth, seventh octave. Or you can play the fifth mode of it, which is my absolute favourite, which I forget its name, but it's like Mambusa or something, I can't fucking remember, pardon my language. And that is basically a pentatonic. So the fifth mode is a 5-note variant of, so you've got Locrian there. So the only missing notes from Locrian are there and there. Locrian is the 7th mode, or the 2nd mode of Aeolian. That's the 2nd mode of Aeolian. So once you know how to play A minor from the 2nd position, covering the whole fretboard, you then just take out 2 notes and you've got the Japanese tetrachord. Tetrachord is because it's made up of 3 blocks, so you've got 1, 2, 3 notes, and then 1, 2, 3 notes. There's a great video, which I'll try and link, but tetrachords are made up of two groups of 3-note variants. So you might have, for example, they're all pentatonics. You might have major pentatonics, so root, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 7th octave. And the first 3 notes, 1, 2, 3, are one half of the tetrachord. 1, 2, 3, the other half of the tetrachord. So they still use 12-note contemporary Western intervals. They just divide them into sets of pentatonics. So, like for example, these first 3 notes are 1, 2, 3. Second 3 notes are 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever. So you've got. Let's try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you vary any of them, it becomes a different mode of the Japanese tetrachords. So like you might have 1, 2, 3. So that's swapping this down a semitone. And there's your first half of the tetrachord. And then you might do, let's say, 1, 2, 3, or just any variable. Let's say so, well, that actually is a tetrachord, but which is just a minor pentatonic. And then, so by learning the minor scale and the major scale, and then creating pentatonics of the minor scale and major scale, we're adding to our, what was it, a total number of scales. So we got plus 6. So we started with 2, 5, 8, including 3 scale, 3 like harmonic, melodic, and natural, plus diminished, plus whole. And then we've got, I don't know the number of pentatonics, but it's 5 by 5 plus all the variables. So we're getting up into like 400-ish. Loosely speaking, if you make pentatonics of every single one of these scales, just by omitting notes while you're playing them, you probably, so what is it, 5, so 5 times 258. That gives us a grand total of 1,290 scales, all extrapolated from that initial understanding of root, 2nd, flat 3rd, 4th, 5th, flat 6th, flat 7th octave. I hope that went by and made sense. I don't know if it did, but like, this is just an initial presentation, just trying to make sense of a theory I was thinking of the other day. So you start with your 5 scales, which all start with this one scale, that then taken through to its natural conclusion gives you 1,290 scales, which is actually probably more like, if you take all the variants I've got here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scales, 8, right, so we've got fresh start. 8 scales by 7 modes is 56. And then I forget. I can't do the math. But if you've been paying attention, you'll get the idea that this isn't even beginning to scratch the surface, because we started out with 3 scales and we've got 8. So plus those arbitrary linear patterns. So if we take 258 as our baseline, so if we just drop 258 times an additional 5, we get that number again, plus the pentatonic, so an additional times 5. So our grand total of extrapolated scales, if I've done the math correct, which I probably haven't, so feel free to correct me, is 6,450 scales that are all under your fingers, effectively, from learning that one natural minor, melodic minor, harmonic minor, variable set, plus diminished, plus whole tone. So I'm going to try and unpack this over future videos, make a little bit more sense. Hopefully this is interesting, but I just wanted to present my treatise that there are basically 5 scales, and actually really, if you really want to get down to it, there's 3 scales. They're the only scales that matter, and everything else is a variable of it are aeolian, diminished, and the whole tone scale. So by learning 3 scales initially, so this is the point of the thing. If you learn aeolian and then just generate variables and learn it across the whole of the instrument, you end up with 6,450 scales, and that's not even including like the Coltrane pentatonic, or like other variables, and the tetrachords, and what more could you want? 6,450 scales from learning 3 scales. Right, I've been Dave Bradley, aka Dr. B Bass. If any of this made any sense, please like, subscribe, share the video and anyone finds it useful. And this is my very first theory lesson that I've done in ages. Kind of proud, kind of embarrassed. So like and subscribe and let me know what you thought in the comments. Peace.